Self-awareness is part of the package of being an artist. You don't have to be somebody else just because someone like comparison is the death of all creativity. I find in my early 20s, I just wanted everybody to like me so badly. Looking back, it's like the desperation kind of smells really, really bad. What people want is they want you within the confines and the circumstances of the character and the script. There's 7-8 billion people in the world. Anybody can play this character, but it's going to be their essence as that character.
Hello and welcome to the Actors Volume. I'm Jeff Berg.
And I'm Matthew Brazina.
And together we sit down with our friends, colleagues, and mentors to ask them about their journey, challenges, and the standards they set for success within the mocap industry. Now, I approach the interviews from an actor's perspective.
And I bring a production point of view to these conversations. Today, we're at Rouge Mocap's Volume to introduce our next guest, Jeff Berg.
Yeah, this conversation really opened me up to some unexpected lessons. One of the biggest takeaways for me is the value of making space outside the hustle, especially when it comes to family. Focusing on personal growth, both as an actor and a father, has made me a stronger performer. It's also deepened the connections I build with cast and crew, creating those authentic relationships that bring a production to life.
In this episode, Jeff talks about how he grounds himself and delivers authentic performances, how growing yourself as a person can actually help you grow your acting career, and why theater acting is such a good pairing with performance capture.
Now, I hope you enjoy and find something useful out of what I have to say. If you've learned something by the end of this episode, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share this episode with a friend. Now, enjoy the show.
Hi, Jeff.
Hey.
So, as you know, we already did our test episode.
Yeah.
And we touched a lot about our backgrounds and why we're doing all this and everything. But I did realize while reviewing the last episode that we didn't really talk a ton about your career path in general of how it all started.
I mean, I thought it was great because it was like for testing. I was like, yeah, let's get out there and see what happens.
That being said, because even I don't know a lot about your career path, because I know you trained in theater and you did theater, and then you did film, but like, did you do short film, which led into video games, or did you do short film, feature film? Like, how did this all what was your path in the world of acting?
Yeah, I mean, coming out of theater school, my focus was kind of like say yes to everything. It was like I just wanted to, I was in that place where I just wanted to get as much experience as possible. So, I would do NYU student films, I would do indie films, black box theater, a ton of black box theater in New York, just anywhere where I could like be working on my craft, being creative. And I was at that point in my career where I didn't care about like, oh, is this going to advance my career? Is this going to bring in a ton of money at the moment? It's just like, I want to be working and I want to be like out there meeting people. So yeah, right out of theater school, I was very fortunate I booked a play and an indie film right off the bat. And that just kind of got my feet wet. It was like navigating between working on a play during the week and weekends, and then hopping on a train and going down to Pennsylvania and shooting an indie film and going back and forth. And I just found like all of those experiences of saying yes kind of showed me like where I wanted to narrow down my focus so that as I got older, I could start saying no. And that's where the power comes in as I am more confident in my craft, more confident in who I am as a person. I mean, I was not that I don't have insecurities now, but in my early 20s, it was like I just wanted everybody to like me so badly. And now it's like I know what I can fit into better, and that gives me the power to say no.
So you mentioned that you had the urge to like have everyone like you, and you brought that into your work. Do you think that helped your case, or do you think it actually like didn't really serve you, or might have like led you down a wrong path or anything like that?
I think it was one of those like mistakes that kind of lasted for a couple of years that in hindsight, I've grown from it and I've learned from it. And I'm glad that I made it at that young stage. But I was just trying so hard. I just, putting on this like little persona and trying to show like, hey, look at I'm an actor guy and I can be the
Mhm.
guy in your movie. And it was just looking back, it's like the desperation kind of smells really, really bad.
Mhm.
And like I said, I'm glad that it happened at that time because now I can look back and be like, oh, what people want is me as this character. There's 7, 8 billion people in the world, and anybody can play this character, but it's going to be their essence as that character. I mean, I did a play, my first play, I played Puck in Midsummer Night's Dream, and my teacher, I remember my director, I remember her saying, I played Puck, telling me that she played Puck when she was in high school, and she said, "You'll never be the Puck that I was." And I took all this offense to it, saying like, oh my goodness, like I'm not." She doesn't think I'm a good enough actor or something like that. But what I realized, what she was saying, is that what she brings to the table as a woman with her life experiences and the things that make her who she is, I will never be able to replicate that, and yet she will never be able to replicate what I did. And that's kind of like a huge eye opener where it's like going into auditions for people who think like, oh, I have to be a certain way, like the casting is looking for me to be this way. Well, they want you within the confines and the circumstances of the character and the script. And so bringing your essence and being you as this person is probably the biggest win that I've ever had as an actor, because I think it really held me back. There was
Mhm.
there was something that I had where I was able to book early on, but I just wasn't bringing my essence to the table. It was this idea of who I was supposed to be. And now that I've started to find what my thing is, and I'm still discovering
Yeah.
it, man. Like it's this journey just keeps on going. And as we get older and we evolve as well.
Mhm.
And what I bring to the table is going to evolve. And so I just have to never stop being having the awareness that I am enough. I write that at the top of every script. I am
Really?
enough.
That's a
Yeah.
good lesson to
Yeah.
definitely
It's like
take
you don't
to
have
heart.
to you don't have to be somebody else just because someone like comparison is the death of all creativity. I find is
Mm.
comparing my career to friends that have worked more or worked in capacities that I want to
Yep.
work in more.
Yep.
It's like that doesn't help me. It's got to be me. It's got to be
I can
my
attest to
hard work.
that
Yeah.
because not just like because that's something I've seen a lot of people struggle with, and I've struggled with it at times too. Is like when you're trying to book something, and then you do
Oh.
multiple auditions, and then one of your friends does like one, and they book something, and you're like, "What am I
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
wrong?" And then it got even worse whenever I started ADing because I was on set with all these fantastic actors, and that it was the same thing where I'm like, "Wow, look what everybody's doing," and I'm just here, not acting for over a year. And yeah, I was able to break through that, but that is something that, I have recognized a lot of people and myself usually run into is that comparison game.
And what you have to remember is that onset experience that you had ADing
Mhm.
is not going to hurt you. It is going to
No,
make you a
not at all.
stronger actor. You're going to be that guy that is able to show up on set and you know how to carry yourself. You know the routines and you know what goes on, and that is only going to help you.
Is there a specific moment that kind of broke that habit? Was it that conversation with your teacher, or was it
I
a
wish it happened then
different
because
moment?
that was a long time ago. I really wish it sunk in then. I think it's when I started coaching other actors more
Mm,
is when it really started to sink in. Seeing a person how they are when they're off camera, and then seeing just something that's different. And I'm like, where's this wonderful, sweet, charming human that I've been talking with? And then all of a sudden they disappear. And I
mm,
realized, oh, because they're not bringing themselves. They have an idea of what the casting director wants, and they're not bringing their personal life to this character. I wish there was a more specific moment, like, where I could
Mhm.
say, this aha moment. I'm sure it happens with as I work more and as I get older, I start to settle in, and the people pleasing thing was an element of me outside of acting as well, so it was almost
Mm.
a natural progression that when I brought that element of myself into my acting, where it was like I wanted to make the director happy. I wanted to make the casting director happy, and therefore I wasn't being my authentic self. But yeah, I think as I get older, I started to settle in and realize I want to do cool projects that work for me, and rather
Mm.
than trying to just be in a movie or just be on TV or just be in a video game, I just don't find that to be exciting anymore.
You might have already answered it, but just so we have it on record, do you feel like, because it is something that I've noticed not everybody recognizes, and it's something that took me a long time to recognize as well, but it sounds like you might agree with this. Do you agree that, like, working on yourself and, like, focusing on you as a person has helped you in as an actor versus in focusing on just, like, going to classes and, like, building the craft?
I think that the self awareness is part of the package of being an artist. I have no desire to be the suffering artist that, like, I hear a lot of people who think like they can't express their art if they're not in deep pain and suffering. And
Yeah, yeah.
I've had pain and I've had suffering, so I have stuff that I can draw from, but I have no desire to live a life where I'm just like in the doldrums all the time. But looking inwards, meditation, taking care of my physical health, mental health, all of these things make me a better artist and help with my concentration, which is one of the biggest things with being on set is like there's all these things being thrown at us, and concentration and not
Mm,
being derailed in moments where things get a little hectic or things get a little out of control. It's like, okay, I can go back to my breath. I know that my body's not going to let me down. I'm not going to get tired, because the mental part is going to be the toughest one when a director is throwing new things at us. Maybe you're not getting along with someone that well. Like when all of these factors come in, it's got to come back to like, do I take care of myself, and have I challenged myself? I mean, lately I've gotten into cold showers. I don't know. Have you got into that at all?
I am not brave enough to try. I like my
Oh,
hot
Matt, you
shower.
have to try. It's it. I heard about it years ago, and I was like, I can't. I don't want to
Mm,
have a cold shower. So I had the hot shower, but then at the ending with this cold shower, I feel like it kind of tests the fight or flight mechanism. And all I want to do is get out of the shower, but you
mm,
just start to just let it come over you and breathe. And I find that like when tough things come up in life, those little practice moments on a daily basis just kind of make it so that I'm not reactive and I can respond in situations. And
mm.
so to go back to your question, all of those things with physical health, mental health go hand in hand with the craft, and consistently like doing the work. So I think they all work so well together and are essential to each other.
Some of the things that you mentioned, I've noticed you do on set, like
Mm.
preparing for a character or like preparing for certain scenes. And you also mentioned earlier that you were teaching people as well.
Yeah.
So, do you have any sort of methods that you like to use to ground yourself and your characters, or to develop characters that you use either in like rehearsal or in shoots?
So a lot of it comes down to breathing. I do this breathing exercise that I've really loved lately is 4 breaths in, or 4 counts in, hold for
Hmm.
7, and then shh, do like a big exhale for 8. And I find just like that really recycles the air, gets everything flowing, and I just it really grounds me. Really just gets me into a place where okay, I can concentrate, I can listen and respond, so that the instrument is just ready to go. I think you saw, like, I love music with my
Yep, yep.
preparation. I just love having my earbuds on set, and
Mhm.
in theater school is kind of where I got that, and it used to be a very, like, it used to be kind of a thing where people in class would take like 15 minutes to listen to like 3 or 4 songs, and it would just be like, okay, when are we going to start the work? Eventually, I got to a point where I have my playlist that I play in the car, usually 20 to 30 minutes before I arrive on set, and I start to play those songs in a specific order. I do my
Okay.
vocal exercises, and then when I'm on set, I can pop my earbuds in within like 15 to 30 seconds. I can be connected with where, like, just having my instrument just ready to go, and then whatever the other actor gives me or the scene is calling for, I am open to it, but I don't put any results on what's supposed to happen in a scene.
What do you mean by that?
Like, if it says, if the script says the character cries, that's one of those pitfalls where it's like an actor's
Mm,
like, "Oh, this is my crying scene. I've gotta cry here." I like scratch that out. I remove the result of the crying, but I can put myself in an energy of what is this person going through, and then what are the circumstances, and how would I react in this situation? And the music will help me get into like how I would react. And then whatever happens, happens.
mm.
Because the worst thing is seeing an actor fake cry or fake an emotion that's not there. It's just,
Yeah.
you just don't want to see it. I mean, I'm sure most young actors have been there, and some kind of genres call for it. I don't want to be that guy. So
Yeah.
the music just helps me to really ground and to open my instrument so that it's ready to play. Yeah, so 20 to 30 minutes in the car before start my playlist. Vocal exercises, usually like a lot of just things to get my tongue going, my mouth open, a lot of kind
Did
of
you
stuff.
pick that up in theater?
Yeah, in theater school.
Okay.
Yeah. It's so funny. It's the same exercise that I did back at Circle in the Square.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just find that it grounds me, but it also wakes everything up.
That's one of the things that I'll say that I was really, because I started in theater, that was one of the takeaways from theater that I definitely would not have gotten through my experience in film or video games, which is a lot of those sort of warm-ups, but more importantly, how much they can help. Because some of them, like, if you don't really know what's going on, especially from an external perspective, some of them do look ridiculous,
Oh yeah.
or
Yeah.
sound ridiculous. But when you actually do them, you can I've had moments where I'm like, I can feel the results in the performance, and I'm like, "Wow,
Yeah.
that actually did help." And I know that I don't run into those sort of warm-ups a lot in film or video game. And, we've talked about this before, but there was a set that I was on where some of the technical, because there is there is a handful of directors who utilize and include those sort of warm-ups in their actual process of shooting motion capture and PCAP.
Yeah, I've actually worked with the same director that you were
Mhm.
mentioning, and he hired me for my very first video game job, and I remember showing up, and we were doing table reads, and we were getting to know each other, and we were on shoot days, we were doing vocal and physical warm-ups, and I was blown away. I mean, it was, I was like, I found my people. I found
Yeah.
like, this is making me feel at home. And I when I don't have that on a set, I feel like I'm like, when's the warm up happening, guys? Or I'll
Mhm.
go and do. I make sure
I've
I'll get
noticed you do
in pretty
that
early.
on sets. You'll do it yourself. Mhm.
Yeah, and I try and have my own little physical warm up and vocal warm up, and with performance capture, I find it's essential to be able to move as if the head cam is not there, and then you're not wearing a skin tight suit, and that you don't have these balls on your body. You have to be able to have no restriction in your movement, and no, as if there's no obstacle in the way of you living this life. And I find rolling around on the floor and vocalizing and jumping up and down, even if it like bumps the camera a little bit, we can move the camera back.
Yep.
It may take a minute or two, but things will come back. But what it does for the actors and what it does for the environment of the shoot, I think is it's priceless.
Hmm.
And sometimes like if I'm on a set where we're in a trailer or something, I'll like call the other actors over and like work,
Yeah.
work scenes at a time, or like at least get to like interact with one another so that it's not this cold, hey, nice to meet you. I'm your husband today. Like
Yeah.
it's just it doesn't create a great environment. So I think the rehearsal and the warm up are they are a part of the work.
How do you go about developing just relationships with your co-stars and with your scene partners, whether it is just like approaching them with the scene or even before you start rehearsal or before you start the shoot and approach them with like, hey, do you want to do a warm up, or like how do you kind of like, do you have any like tricks, or just like what's your mindset of approaching people that you're going to have to work with and
Right.
have to be intimate with, or have to hate them, but
Yeah.
all that fun stuff.
That's such an interesting question, Matt, because I think part of it is learned and part of comes from my character,
Mm,
my from who I have been. I mean, when I lived in New York, my friends would always make fun of me because we'd get into a taxi and I'd see the last name of the taxi driver and I would say hello in the language of where that person's from. And
mm,
then all of a sudden we'd have this incredible ride where the taxi driver's telling about things from his home country and from his family, and all of a sudden we've bridged the gap. And I kind of love that bringing people together element of life. I find that exciting. So I guess to make it more specific to showing up on set and video game work, I want to be the guy that people enjoy working with and say, you know what, I had like a really cool experience with him. Like he was a giving actor, but also just the kind of guy when there's a lot of downtime on set, he respected my space when I wanted to work, or was just a cool, fun person to be around. And I think that drives me as opposed to the younger me that wanted to get people to like me. I like asking people questions about, where are you from? What brings you here? What makes you tick? So it's not just about me, me, me. And then it opens up from there. And then all of a sudden we realize we have some connection of a friend or something. And I love doing this with all kinds of actors, whether they're like the star of the show or someone that's just starting out. I feel when it comes down to it, this may excuse me if this is kind of cheesy, but it's like we're all human beings when it really comes
yeah.
down to it. And it doesn't matter if you're number one on the call sheet. I remember an acting teacher telling me, he's like, we all breathe, we all eat, we all shit, we all bleed, and it doesn't matter like how big of a movie you've been in or how much money you have. We all have these things that make us human and draw us together. And I just love being around cool humans. And so that's my biggest thing on set, is just being the person that people would want to hang out with, respecting their boundaries if they want their own space, but being the guy that's inquisitive about their lives and wanting to know more. Because big picture, I want to steal stuff from them, like
Yeah.
acting stuff, not physical stuff. I want to steal little tricks. I want to steal.
Jeff's in their trailers
I'm in
making
there.
all
I'm
this
like, oh, they
shit.
trust me now. I'm gonna go in their bag. That doesn't
I'm
happen.
in.
I'm in. No, I want to be surrounded by people that are stronger than me, and I want to grow from that. And once you have that ease with someone, people let down their vulnerabilities, or they become more vulnerable and let down their
Mhm.
guards a little bit, and it helps the storytelling as well.
Have you had any instances where you've had to work with somebody that you don't necessarily get along with, or is like, have you ever had any instances where you've ran into like a toxic relationship, and if so, how have you handled that?
Without saying any names, I had one kind of bigger name actor who showed up on a video game shoot and had looked at the rest of the supporting cast and was like, "When are the actors showing up?
Oh
Like,
geez.
when are like the real people showing up?" And that was kind of the atmosphere to begin.
Oof.
and this actor wasn't prepared, didn't know his lines, hadn't read the sides for the day, and I just go back to the old phrase of use it. Okay, so my character doesn't get along with this guy. So I've got it right in front of me. I've got like I don't have to pull from my toolbox of, oh, this time in my life that I didn't get along with someone. Like, oh, in this moment right now, I have this person that I don't get along with. But then I realize that they have their own things going on. I don't take it personally,
Mhm.
and sometimes you're gonna have to like grit your teeth and just be the bigger person, because I don't want to create drama on set. I mean, this person was already creating enough, and it wouldn't help the situation or the shoot if we
Yeah.
created drama. So I was like, let's use this and put my frustration into the work.
Those are always difficult, delicate dances.
I mean, as an AD, you probably ran into that quite a bit, right?
As an AD, it's interesting because you run into it not just with talent, but also with crew, and then sometimes even clients. And those relationships are a little bit different at times, especially when it comes to clients, because they think, oh, I'm paying for this, so I can,
Hmm.
do what I want. So that it is really delicate balance, and I would say I have kind of different tactics for, like, obviously working with a scene partner is very different than working with a client. So I have different tactics for things, but
Yeah.
one trick that I do utilize whenever I run into somebody where I'm like, we do not mix, and when I run into people, what really irritates me is when I don't necessarily care and I can move past if people are jerks to me. But when I see people being jerks to other people, like whether it's
Mm.
the cast or the crew, that really gets to me. But the biggest trick that I have been able to use is I always think back, even if I really am not liking somebody or get to the point where I despise somebody, I always think about what were they like as a kid. Because at some point they had to have been happy. Like if you look at a kid
Mhm.
running around, they don't have all that hate and animosity that they may have now. So I think of what they are like as a kid or what they could have been like as a kid. And I'm like,
Yeah.
how do I tap into that? Or like how do I bring that out of them? And that's been my biggest trick that I've been able that has helped me in a lot of situations where I've had to deal with toxic relationships.
That's pretty ingenious. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
steal it.
And you touched on a great point that your actor teacher brought up, which is like at the end of the day, we're all humans and we
Mhm.
all have shit that we have to go through. And even if somebody brings a really terrible attitude to set, like you can't you have to move past it because you don't know what's going on outside of their lives.
Mhm.
You have no idea what factors are influencing them or weighing on them. Um, and ultimately, you also brought this point up too. Doesn't matter if you're a crew, cast, client, whenever we're all on set, we're all in the same boat. And
Yeah.
that is one thing I've had to actually tell people is it's like,
Yeah.
I know that you're, pissed off. I know that you do not like this person. I know you want this, which doesn't work with what they need or want, but we're all in the same boat. I'm
Mhm.
like, and
Yeah.
and I've told people too. I'm like, I don't care how I don't care how high you are in the status chain. I'm like, we're all in the same boat. We all have a job to do, and we all need to have each other's backs.
Yes.
Even if it's just for this moment. And then when we leave set, you can go back to hating me or whomever. I'm like, but in this moment, we have to have each other's
I mean,
backs.
who could hate you though, honestly? No, I
Because
was
I try to shut down anytime I see that, especially when I mentioned that, like, anytime I see somebody bring toxicity towards others, I try to intervene and shut that down as soon as possible and try to
Mhm.
really set the pace because the longer you let it fester, the worse it's gonna get.
Yeah. Yeah, I like to tell people, I'm like, a movie set or a video game shoot or theater is kind of like a car. So
Oh, I remember this.
the actors, the shiny exterior. So, you got your fancy Lamborghini or whatever, and looks all sweet, and that's the actor. Like they end up on the screen. That's the what the audience sees. But then there's all this magic that's happening that you don't see when you see the final product. I mean, the crew, that's the gas in the tank. The pistons have to be firing. There's got to be oil inside. There's got to be windshield washer fluid. There's got to, the interior has to be clean. All of these things have to be working together in order for the engine to fire, so that the car can move and so that it can look all beautiful and fancy. A beautiful car that just is stuck on the side of the road, it doesn't really do anybody any good.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are the ones that people end up seeing in the final product. But without our sound guy, without our camera guy, without the guys pulling cables, without the PAs driving people that you don't even see, without every element kind of working together, this project just doesn't happen. And it's
Yeah.
magic that that's why I
Mhm.
can't hate on even bad movies. I
Yep.
keep thinking, wow, you know what? Those people, they took a year out of their lives probably to make this, and like the people in production probably had even more time before that, like in development and like casting and then post production. And it's like the magic that has to happen in order for a project to come together is incredible. And it's definitely not just the actors,
No.
because we finish and then sometimes years later something comes out.
It was a producer, and it was a video game producer, I forget whom, but I remember them saying it's a miracle that any video game gets made because there's just so much that goes into it, and I think it's the same
Yeah.
case with film and theater. On that note, actually, because you've done all 3, what have you found to be because they're all kinda different beasts, but they all have overlying qualities. What have you found to be like similarities, strengths, weaknesses of film compared to mocap to theater? And to start, we can instead of tackling all 3 at once, like let's focus on theater to mocap, especially because that's what you started with initially
Yeah.
was theater. So on a performer side, how do you feel theater compares to mocap?
I can break it down, even bringing in all of them
Okay,
together a little
let's do
bit.
it.
Um, so if you don't mind, I want to start with a little story. Okay.
Of course.
So I've been fortunate enough to help with to be a reader for casting video games,
Mhm.
and it's great because I get to help actors. I want to give them as much as possible in order to give them the best opportunity to book the job and to win the room. And so I was working on a project where this actor came in, older guy, he quite experienced, and he said to the director that I was working with, he's like, "So, this video game thing, I've never done a video game. So, like, is it real acting? Do you want like, do I need to do real acting for this, or is everything like bigger and kind of like?" And this director that I was working with he just kind of kept. He was like, just be alive, be a real human being, and have some awareness of your physical space. And then this actor went on to, when I was working with De Niro, and we were just like, okay, name dropping and saying that video game acting is not real acting is just not a place where you want to start off with a director.
Yep.
So, having that in mind, I like to think that acting for video games is doing theater on film. It's the beauty that I love about theater, the beauty that I love about film, getting rid of the kind of like difficulties of each medium and then throwing it all together. It's really like a beautiful thing for actors to work in video games, because with the 360-degree cameras, you
Mhm.
take away what happens in film where I need to stay open to the camera. I've got to hit my mark, which, not to say that there aren't marks where there are specific things that come into play, but we have the freedom, like when you're first starting to rehearse a play, if I have the organic feeling to move away from you while we're having this conversation, In post, the DP comes in later and can cut to my
Mhm.
face, which blew my mind away the first time I saw it. I
Yeah.
just I'm like, wow, so I can get rid of the constraints of I need to be open to this camera. I can move if it makes sense for the scene, not just because I want to, but if it makes sense for the circumstances of the scene, and then we can that can be used later. That just blew my mind. So I have the freedom to move like in theater without the constraints of film. So I really love that. Then with video games, you have your head cam right here and your microphone. You know, it always changes. It seems like the
Mhm.
technology
Yeah.
changes.
It's
Like,
it's different pretty much with every stage you go to. Every technician, like, everyone has their own processes,
yeah,
and everyone's just trying to figure it out.
yeah. I love like, you know, six every 6 months, like the technology is so different. It's crazy.
Mhm.
But what I was gonna say about the microphone is that because the microphone is right here, we don't have to project like in the theater. Like we're not in a Broadway stage.
Mm.
You have to get to the back of the stage,
Yep.
so you can really just speak on your voice. You don't have to project. It's going to get picked up, and that for me helps ground me as well.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing that is kind of caught me off guard at first is that a scene has to go all the way through. So that's a lot
That
like
caught you off
theater.
guard?
At first, yeah. You know, in film,
Okay.
like you can stop and then they're like, okay, we'll just pick up here. A couple times we'd get like right towards the end and someone would flub something. It's like, all right, back to ones. I'm like, but the beginning of the scene was beautiful. Like we were so connected. We were dropped in. Like, no, the scene has to make it all the way through to the end
Yep.
because I didn't really understand the technical aspect and still don't. The magic that happens still blows my mind. Like
Yeah.
it's incredible. But yeah, that I found to be a constraint at first, but now it's such an asset because with my preparation, I know, oh, this has that element like a play where we get to play, we push through, whether or not like until we hear cut, we're just gonna keep on going. Like
Yep.
just keep on going. And those rehearsals where maybe there's something that needed to be tweaked, but we are learning from that past rehearsal. I call every take a rehearsal anyways. It's like I don't I don't see any there's no performance. Every take is just another rehearsal and just growing. So this element of having one big take, I'm like, all right, this rehearsal just has to keep on going. There we go. And I think it's a real benefit for actors. Is it actors that are prepared? If you're not prepared, it sucks because then you're gonna be struggling for lines and that kind of thing. But it lets us be in the flow of the scene without interruption.
Yeah.
We don't have to turn it around. We don't have to change lighting setups. It's just like it flows, baby. It's like
That was one of the things when I first acted in video games that I fell in love with, because even I've worked with some really phenomenal directors who have marks for talent because they know the post camera work that they want to do, or sometimes they have the actual VCam. But the really cool thing that I still love is even if you have really specific marks, you can still do the scene from beginning to end because even if the camera is off or even if somebody's slightly off their marks, they can move all that in post. So even if they don't
mm,
hit that, like whereas in a film, if you're out of frame or out of the camera, it's like
yeah,
we got to cut, we got to go back over. But in video game, it's like, ah, that's fine. We can just move the frame a little over in post, or we could move the talent over in post,
yeah.
and it allows the freedom even when you do have those really specific beats and marks you can still keep going and let the performance become, stay natural.
May I add something else?
Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing that was a bit of a surprise was the T pose. And
Oh, that throws so many people
so
off,
many
which I
people.
totally understand.
Yeah, I mean, you have this really intense scene coming up, and the preparations bubbling, and we're ready to jump into it. And I'm like, all right, let's go. All of a sudden, we're like, all right, we're ready to go. It's like cameras are rolling, and then actors T pose, and it's like, wait, what? So I've got to find. At first, it was like just threw me off. Like I now have to remove myself from, I'm no longer the character. I'm now this technical thing that is trying to get picked up on the screen.
Yep.
And at first it really threw me. I was like, wait, how am I supposed to drop in? I just drop my arms and then go. That's what I'm expected to do. I quickly learned that I could use that as fuel again. It's a physical thing that's really happening. So rather than pretend that it's not there, I can use it with as my character, as me as my character. Um, I start like clocking the other actor that I'm going to be talking with. Maybe if it's a villain that I'm confronting, I can start to like I'm already running at them
Mm.
in my head. It's begun. If it's a love interest, I start to see I start to connect with him. And I love it when we have like a little moment in T pose where we have a connection and
Just
then
love at
arms
first
drop.
depots.
It's love it first T pose, you know?
Yeah,
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 so we have to be able to find a way to use the technical things to our advantage because they're not going away
yeah.
not in the near future, you know?
And the one thing that I'll add on top of that is I'm really glad you brought that up because it doesn't matter, like, even when we're working with, like, the absolute best of the industry who have, shot mocap for, like, a decade straight, there's so many times where they still forget to T-pose or, like, they're getting into character, and then you just see them remember it, and then they just kinda shoot up into it. It's so funny every
Yeah,
time it
even at the
happens.
end of a scene, sometimes, like, on this NDA project that I've been on for the last little while, I remember having this one PCAP scene where, I mean, it was going into the depths of the shit in my past and my soul, and exploring all that suffering, which as an actor I love that stuff.
Mhm.
But after the scene was done, I remember just being crumpled up on the floor and kind of just destroyed, and then having to remember to T-pose.
Yep. Yep.
I was just like shaking on the floor, and then I could hear everyone getting up around me, and I knew I had to do it. And I didn't want to make eye contact with anybody. It was that kind of, the atmosphere was like you could hear a pin drop,
Yeah.
and yet I had to get up.
This is something that I think we've experienced before, but it's something that I do talk to a lot of actors because especially in those really like heavy moments, I do sometimes talk to an actor, especially if I know that they're gonna be in that space where I'm like, where I'll talk to the tech team if I know that the actor's uncomfortable with it, or sometimes the actor's like, do I really have to T pose at the end of it, or do I really have to T pose at the beginning? I'll talk to the technical team and be like, hey, what are the logistics? Like, do they
Mm,
need to before an end for the scene? And sometimes they just need it at the beginning, or sometimes they need it at the end. And I'll be able to work with the technical team, and the technical team will be able to work with the actor to try to limit the amount of T-pose or like do whatever they need to do to help them, stay in that performance. And the reason why I bring that up is because if anybody is listening who is like dead set on trying to like you know, trying to figure out how to navigate the technical aspects that come with mocap and balance it with the emotional aspects that come with acting, don't be afraid to ask the AD or the technical team to be
yay.
like, hey, is there any way we can limit what we have to do? Because we do
Yeah.
it a lot with people who are dying in a scene or start in a shot who are dead. Because you obviously, it's really hard for them, obviously, to like do a rehearsal where they're dead on the floor and then have to stand up T pose, get dead on the floor, and then like stand up. So like that's probably the biggest
Yeah,
example
that
that we
makes
run
sense.
into. But yeah,
And
I
also
think that's just one of those. Yeah, go ahead.
if there's a platform or something and how you have to
Yep.
T-pose on the ground.
Yep.
I've done that so many times where I'm on a platform ready to run down like into this thing of demons or whatever, and then you're like, "Ah, Jeff, can you come back on the ground to T-pose?" I'm like, "Oh, okay,
Yep.
ground to
And I'm
T-pose."
usually the guy who has to tell you
Yeah.
that.
What about when people? I feel like as actors, we don't know the specific moment when we can put our T-pose down. It's so funny
Yep.
when new people come on a shoot and we'll all be T-pose, and then you hear, okay, we're rolling, and then I think so. I put my arms down, and then other people keep their arms up, and then some people put their arms back up, and then some people put it down and then others see that happen and they put their arms down. And it's like, it's kind of like flapping wings at the beginning, trying to figure out like, do we have to hold until
Yep.
action? Can we go at rolling? Like,
Yep.
what's the, so what is the real, tell everybody out there, please.
I usually tell people, again, every stage does it differently, but with the stage that I work at, and work with most often, so you have two segments where you roll: the mocap rolls and then the witness cams roll. So mocap always rolls first. So what I usually tell people is when they hear that slate clap, because we mark everything with the slate for witness cams. So it's the clapper bit. And I always tell people whenever you hear that clapper bit, you're good to let your T pose down because the mocap's already rolling. And that's like an easy identifiable moment to be like, okay, now I can let it down and get into character.
Beautiful. A little bit of magic there from Matthew. Thank you.
You are welcome. Whatever makes it easier. One thing that I really want to touch on, because I don't think a lot of people really talk about the life choices that go into evolving journey of one's career. And with you specifically, I would love to hear about your decision to move from a different country, because I know a lot of people, and myself included, who have moved from different states to LA to pursue stuff, and that's a big decision in itself. But moving from an entire different country, I feel like is a bigger, heavier decision. So I'm really curious to hear A, what made you think you had to, and if you thought you had to, but B, what was also the final factor of being like, "Yep, I have to do this."
I mean, it's been almost 20 years that I've been here, and
Mm,
it's such cool thing to think about because when I first realized that I wanted to go to theater school, I didn't think that I was going to move to the States permanently. It was, I had a friend, Justin Tenson, who was this actor that we started off doing background work together, and he ended up going to New York and getting into Circle in the Square. And I was behind still in Toronto, and I was like, I don't want to just be this actor that memorizes lines and books work. I'm like, I wanna train. And I looked into some Canadian schools, and the fact that I had a friend in New York just kind of opened that door. So to me, it was just like, all right, I'm gonna go to New York for 2 years. I'm gonna study there and come back to Canada with those skills and just kind of take over the Toronto market.
mhm,
And of course, I absolutely fell in love with New York. I mean, living in a place where I had access to go see a play 7 days a week.
mhm.
If it was 7:45 and I was in Midtown, I could pop into a theater and catch something at 8 o'clock if I wanted. And that that got me hooked. It was just, I was living in a place where it was like the big leagues of the entertainment business. It's like Toronto had now has way more happening, and but back then had a lot happening, but it was like it was kind of like the farm leagues where there's great stuff, there's great development, there's great work coming out of there, and there's really great talents. But eventually people want to end up in New York or LA if you're going to work in film and TV. So I started to realize this more and more, that I need to be in the where the heartbeat of this industry is, and that's either New York or LA. And at the time, I had a real chip on my shoulder about LA, that it was fake, and that that the people there were a certain way, and I was just like, New York is where the artists are, and this is where I'm going to work and do plays and TV and indie films. And so the transition to living in a different country was pretty organic because I still thought I was going to move back. I kept thinking,
Ah,
I got a practical training visa for the first year after I was done school, so I could work and I could book work legally, which is a huge hurdle for international students when they study here. It's like trying, you finish your studies and then you can't work. So having that visa for a year just gave me the opportunity to say, hey, I'm going to stay for this year and see what happens, and then we'll go from there. And I was fortunate enough to I booked some work, enough to just kind of a little
Mhm.
dangle of the carrot to say, oh, people like you a little bit, you can maybe work in this industry. So that opened up a door to get the artist visa, which is called the O1. So then, I invested a couple $1,000s in this visa, and so now I'm staying 2 or 3 more years, and then I get into a relationship, and then
Mm.
my friends circle starts to really, really grow, and then I get to know a lot of casting directors, and people are requesting for me to come in and audition, and then I get into theater company, and I my network just keeps growing and growing, and it all of a sudden dawned on me that like 5 years had gone by, and I wasn't going back to Canada. It was tough because I loved where I grew up. I have nothing against it. I could probably work in Toronto and have a decent career. But there was something about just being in the big leagues that was really attractive to me. I wanted to be around the best in the business. I wanted to be where the best projects are casting, because quite often, even if stuff is shooting in Canada, they will cast the main characters in New York or LA,
Yeah.
now Atlanta, now New Orleans, that kind of stuff. And then they will fill in the supporting cast with Canadians. Great actors get those supporting roles in Toronto, so you can definitely have a career. But I was like, I want to be in the big leagues. It's as my parents are now getting older, it becomes tough. It's like I have nephews that live in Canada. I have a sister. I have parents that, like I said, are getting older. They're fine, but we're all getting older, and
Yep.
time is finite. The
Mhm.
time that we have on this earth. And I think when I lived in New York, I was more hesitant to take a weekend away and fly home, whereas now I want to be with my family and I want to spend that time. So I don't think that I'm going to be moving back there anytime soon.
Mhm.
Although my wife and I, we hint at it when things get all wonky politically, and I won't go down that path. But we
Yeah.
talk about it. We're like, could we have a life in Canada? And the answer is kind of like, yeah, maybe we could. So that's not off the table. But we have a
Mhm.
whole life here now. I have a son now. I have a home, and now that I've fallen into this beautiful PCAP world, I have a PCAP community that like I have been fortunate enough to keep getting work, and
Yep.
to have that as an actor, that's kind of lucky. And I haven't always had that in my career. And so would I be smart to throw that away just because I want to live in a different country? So there's so many pros and cons of being here. I mean, it's very different from Canada. It's
I can imagine.
it's very different. People are like, oh, same types of people. Everyone looks kind of very international, multicultural. And that's kind of where it stops.
Yeah.
There's an invisible border, but we're a little bit different. We're a little quirky too, Canadians.
Ultimately, it just sounded like there was no big decision really. It was just something that kind of
No,
organically happened.
no. I mean, I love throwing myself into unknown situations where I'm kind of out of my comfort zone. I love doing that with traveling. I've done that with, I studied abroad when I was in university, and then moved to New York just on a whim. And then when I felt that it was time, I made the move to LA, and I knew a couple of people, but I just had this feeling that it was right. There was no big master plan of I need to get the hell out of Canada. I actually still really love it, and every time I go home, I'm like, wow, this is a really cool place. But New York and LA are kind of my America at the moment. That's where I've lived, and it's opened up a lot of doors for me, and that's the biggest thing that I find. Like from West Side Story, where they think like
Mhm.
the streets of America are paved in gold, and it's it's kind of true. It's like they're not literally paved in gold, but the opportunities that that one can have when they come to this country are kind of endless. I mean,
Hmm.
Was it James Brown who says he can start off as a shoe shine boy and then meet the president, you know?
Yeah.
It's the kind of opportunity that America offers, and
Yep.
I I love being a part of that and just having being on the pulse of our industry. So
No, that's an excellent answer. And in that answer, you also mentioned that you're a dad and that you have a son.
yeah.
And I want to ask you because one of the reasons you why like with the actors volume, I wanted to work with you on it is because I remember when we first started talking about it, I asked a question along the lines of how come you haven't done it yet or like what's holding you back and your honest answer cuz most of the time when when I talk to people about like initiatives and things that they want to do and things that they're really passionate about, they're usually like, well, I don't have the money, you know, I'm trying to build my career first. And your answer was, well, honestly, it's because I'm a dad and I have to, you know, take care of my son. And I was like, that is an honest, good answer. And what I'm curious about, how has having a kid from a career standpoint and even from like a performance standpoint, how has that impacted your career and your work as an actor?
So he's almost 2, and in those 2 years, my answer to your question has really evolved.
Mm,
So before he came along and before I was even married, my career was just about me, 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 me. It was like, what class can I take? What workshop can I do? Who can I meet? Like, what play should I go to? How can I immerse myself in this career wholeheartedly? How can I dive right in? And I loved it. And then as I got into a relationship and realized that me, me, me doesn't really work in a relationship, it has to be me and you. There's got to be a
yeah, has to be
give,
us, us,
give,
us.
us. And so getting into a relationship and then getting into a relationship, I feel I really stepped it up and my perspective changed. But then getting married, where it's like, okay, this is this is the real deal. I mean, it was the real deal before, but it's in the government's eyes now.
And now it's on paper.
Now it's on paper. My decisions affect my partner. And so thankfully she's so supportive of this crazy career, and she's not she's behind the camera, she's on the production side, but she's very supportive, and I now realize that okay, I have my actor world things that I want to dive into, but how does this affect her? And then once we realized that we were having a child, that just got ramped up exponentially. And I mean, I'll give you a really honest answer. At first, for the first couple months, probably the first 3 months, I was mourning the loss of me and my wife's life together, but also the life that I had before. That wasn't
Mm,
saying that I was like, oh my God, what have we done? It was more, wow, I didn't realize how much time I had before.
mm,
What was I doing with my time? Yeah, so I was mourning the loss of this previous life and trying to figure out how I would ever fit into this again. I was like, I don't know how to be a dad and an actor. It just
mm,
I don't want to be a deadbeat dad. So I'm like I don't want to just be a mediocre dad. I want to be a kick-ass dad. I want to be I want to be present in my son's life, and I want him to learn by my example about being present with people and showing compassion and love and empathy. And the first 3 months, Matt, I was just like, I don't know how to be an actor and having these goals at the same time. And it was like, I don't think I can do it. I don't know what I'm gonna do. It just seemed like they were conflicting things. But then this like light bulb moment happened. Maybe that's wrong. It wasn't a light bulb. It was more of kind of like how I moved to the US. It was like
mhm,
a slow burn. I had this slow realization that because I'm putting my energy into something that's greater than myself, it's kind of like when you do volunteer work, you pay for someone's coffee in line, that pay for a stranger's coffee or something.
mhm.
it just feels good because it's something bigger than yourself, and
Yep.
you don't need the recognition. I started to realize that by doing the father things that I needed to do, I was doing something greater than myself, and that I was actually helping my career because I could go
Mm,
into auditions without the desperation of, oh my God, I need this job so badly, which casting directors, producers can smell from 10 miles away.
yes. Yes, they can.
That desperation of I need this job so badly to save me is just that's not the kind of person you want to work with. And I think when I was younger, to go back to reference other stuff, I think I kind of had that reek on me. I was just trying so hard. So now with a child, it's like I yeah, this is a cool project. It would be great to work on, but I have the biggest role of my entire life that I'm working on right
Yeah.
now, and it's not going to stop until I stop breathing. This role is not going to end, and so that's the most important thing. And so what I realized is that my creativity and my love and my work is abundant, and it wasn't like, oh, the piece of my pie was taken, or this huge piece of my pie was stolen because I have a child, but it's like, oh my, the pie just got bigger. And now do my work for auditions, or if I'm on a job, without the need that it's gonna like make me a better person. Like the
Mm,
happiness is not gonna come from the job. I'm happy as a dad, and that's coming from within, from what I feel keeping this little human being alive. And so
yeah.
now all of a sudden the pressure's off me. Like I want to book, yeah, but it's like, okay, if I don't book, I mean, I just wasn't right for it, and I'm gonna go and do a hike with my son, and we're gonna see the outdoors, and we're gonna talk about all the new animals that we learned, and that just fills me. And then if I get to go and work on a video game for a while, and it like I get to meet cool people and get to tell a story that is going to affect human beings when they play, on top of this life with my son, I'm like, that's a win as well. So I think it's just taken me from a place of like me, desperation, I need this, to wow, I love this project, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, all right, on to the next. It's really helped me evolve as an artist, but also as a human being, like to go back to like I am enough, and I am enough, and I didn't know that before, and now it's really been reinforced.
Yeah, I'm glad you just dove into it as deep as you did. And because I've told you this before, but a really profound moment for me as like an actor was the project that we met on. The casting for it was spectacular. And it took me probably about the second or third day to realize, huh, everyone here who's in these roles and who's absolutely like just killing it and giving flooring performances, their priorities in life aren't like acting.
Yeah, I think this reminds me of one of my favorite teachers in theater school, Alan Langdon. And I remember him talking about how when you're working on a role, to immerse yourself in the music that the person would listen to, like go to plays that or go to operas or classical music, and like immerse yourself in the world that they would live in this time, and go to art museums that relate to it. So it's like doing things that are giving you experiences as a human being are going to make you a stronger actor and bring more like depth to your work. And having things outside of acting, having interests, I think are essential into to creating a well-rounded actor.
Thank you for sharing all of that. And as always, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. It's
Oh
always
man,
fun.
the fact that we get to do it, and we're being recorded.
There's many more conversations to come because there's always so much I learned from talking to you. But
Yeah.
I really appreciate you taking the time as always, and can't wait for our next chat.
All right, Matt. It's my pleasure.